everyone, and thank you for joining me for this session of 5 things to consider when choosing a wedding venue. I am Michaela. I work here at View Columbus down here in the Brewery District, just south of downtown, and we're really excited to kind of take you on our journey today of 5 things to consider as you're choosing a venue. We will kind of touch on those 5 big factors to keep in mind as you're shopping around, as you're considering all your options, and there are truly so many options just within the Columbus area as a whole, so many amazing venues to choose from, and so we will just talk through things to keep in mind. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but we are here for you, and we'll kind of touch on all those options, and as you're weighing what decision to make, hopefully this information session will be helpful to you as you move through that. So the first factor to consider that we're going to talk about today, and I'm sure one of the biggest things that, as you're engaged, you're getting asked, where is the wedding? So in that vein, location of your venue, of course, is hugely pivotal to your entire wedding day. Oftentimes it's important to be accommodating of your guests, where they are coming from, where the couple might be from, a place that is maybe special to the couple, the two of them, regardless of whether that's a hometown or not. And so location is just such a huge factor to consider when you're narrowing down to a certain location, whether that's a city, a state, a region of the world. That will really kind of narrow the focus, which, since there are so many options, is really a very helpful thing to consider, whether you're going for an urban environment, a rural setting, on all of those things. So location, biggest factor that we'll touch on today. View specifically definitely fits a unique need, as a lot of our couples are considering potentially a location similar to View would be very convenient to highway access, as well as different hotels, restaurants, entertainment throughout the area, since we are so centrally located, just close to downtown, and in walking distance of a lot of those different attractions for your guests, which is hugely helpful, especially if you're hoping to really show off Columbus during your wedding weekend. Our location is definitely prime for that, and along with that as well is great spots for photos. So that is something to consider. You can find that in rural areas, urban areas, but specifically with View, we are in an extremely walkable neighborhood in the Brewery District. You can hop right over to the German Village to take really nice, beautiful photos on the quaint brick streets. You can hop up to the Short North if you want kind of that more artsy vibe, where you have different shops and restaurants and different things like that in the background. And then, even just a couple blocks away, you have access to the Scioto Mile. So walking, the bridges, getting a beautiful shot of the skyline in the background, quintessential Columbus wedding image. And so many of our couples find that really, really valuable as they are looking for a location. Along with location, and as I kind of touched on, is that you want to, of course, be accommodating for your guests. Your guests will make the effort to find the location and get to the location that you choose, but if you can make that easy for them, of course, that is a wonderful thing, and will just put people's minds at ease, especially if they're already traveling from a city or a town that's out of state. They will feel more comfortable if it's kind of a clear location of where they're going. And so just something to consider, whether you're having that in a very densely populated area in a city versus a more rural location. Envision how your guests will find the location. Envision what it would be like to be in your guest's shoes, trying to find parking, trying to find an area where they can feel comfortable spending some time before the wedding to kill a couple hours, things like that. Put yourself in your guest's shoes, so to speak. Another thing to consider is, as I kind of mentioned before, proximity to activities and hotels. So much of what we hear as a venue too is that couples are really looking to provide a full weekend or week of experiences for their guests. So it's not just relegated to the wedding day and that's it. Maybe there is a welcome reception and a rehearsal dinner that's taking place. Perhaps there is a brunch happening the day after the wedding, and it's kind of the goodbye brunch where you get to have, a little bit more time with your guests and kind of recap the night before. And so when you're choosing a location, that might be something to consider. If your guests are staying in a certain hotel close to your venue, you might want to consider what else is around the venue. Are there restaurant options? Are there different bars and activities where your guests can, find things to do, whether that's taking in a movie at a moving theater, doing some shopping locally, going to a Columbus Crew game, going to a Clippers game, hockey. We have it all really here in Columbus. We're so spoiled. OSU fans. So consider that when you choose a venue that is centrally located to other spots of the city, that can really just enrich your guests' entire experience, so that, as they're making the effort to get to the location you've chosen, you're making the effort for them to make sure they have plenty to do and fill their time with. Just nice to consider. So, of course, we're talking a lot about urban areas and the perks that come with that, because View is such an urban, centrally located location in itself. Rural is also an option, of course, if you're looking to have kind of more of a farm style, maybe a barn wedding, open field setup. There's so many different options, again, very close to Columbus. Just things to consider again is that rural venues could present unique challenges. That's not to say that some of them don't come with everything, but you would want to consider, does that venue supply tables and chairs? I know it sounds like super simple, but not all venues do. Every venue kind of slices it up differently and provides different things. So with location, oftentimes the further you're going out, the further you are getting away from a traditional, so to speak, event space, you might have to consider that you're providing kind of more of those items on your end as far as furniture. You definitely want to consider what the parking situation is, regardless of what type of location you're going with as well. Another thing to consider kind of more on the venue aspect is that your other venues or your other vendors will need to have easy access to load in and load out their items. That is something where a venue is more than happy to tell you how we've done it in the past, what are our best tips for other vendors to load in, and how can we accommodate them. The second quality we're going to touch on when considering choosing a wedding venue is capacity and layout of the space. And basically what that means is, how can the space be used? Is there an opportunity to have a unique layout, or is the venue more of a static setup, meaning that they have their favorite spots for where the bar might be, where your tables are, and you're kind of walking into that space knowing this is what your setup will be, versus maybe having a little bit more liberty to have a very unique setup and really tailored to your wedding. So we will hop into capacity and layout. View definitely has the ability to adapt to different types of weddings and events, and we've been so lucky to have a variety of those over the years, and so we've really seen the space be used in such a unique way for different weddings that we can guide our clients on what we've seen work best, what we suggest when you're asking for a very unique setup and layout. We've kind of seen where that works well, maybe where we can improve, and so having the experience to draw from with a venue that has done a variety of events is very useful, so that you have more of a guidance as far as that goes. We're happy to guide your layout, and we'll definitely weigh in on what we've seen be successful in the past, but really making every wedding feel unique, feel that we are making that layout especially for that day and considering all the factors as far as layout goes. Capacity, just meaning that you want to make sure your guests have ample space as they're spending the evening or the day celebrating your wedding. Try to envision how you will be using the space and how your guests will be moving throughout that space. So if you think about whether you're having ceremony with that venue, whether you're doing ceremony and reception with that venue, what does that look like? When you are touring venues, when you are asking for photos, when you are looking on websites and social media for examples of what weddings have looked like in those venues, think about how you would adapt that to your day and ask the question too. Ask that to your venue representative. How has this looked in the past? Have you had a wedding look like this in the past? When you're standing in the space physically, really try to envision not only how you would feel, of course, as a married couple using that venue on your wedding day, but again, envisioning putting yourself in your guest's shoes. Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel spacious enough to hang out there for multiple hours at a time? Does it feel convenient as far as parking locations, as far as, I know it sounds silly, but restroom access? Does it feel comfortable to stay in that space? You want your guests to feel comfortable. Another thing to consider with capacity and layout as a topic is whether you really want the input on your layout or if you prefer to have the venue kind of guide you on that. Some venues, like I mentioned, maybe have more of a static setup where the furniture basically stays as is and they will adapt it based on how many guests are coming to your wedding. But maybe for the most part, their layout is pretty much as is, and that's how you approach the day. You're going with their layout and you're not really shifting too much, versus maybe in certain other venues you can have complete and total freedom of what your layout looks like, and it's very unique and tailored to your day. So again, asking the question, doing the research, what type of layout can you achieve? Do you have the ability to have a very customized layout, or are you just going with what the venue has decided? And even oftentimes that's not a negative thing. The venue has chosen the layout that works best in their space. They've chosen a layout that they know your guests will be comfortable in. So, you can trust that. But for some couples, that might be comfortable to really have a say in that process and in your layout itself. Another thing to touch on is that music is a huge part, music and dancing, huge part of many weddings and receptions. And so when you're in the space physically, paying attention to what the acoustics sound like, asking the question of whoever is touring you, how does it sound when there's a dance floor going? How does it sound when there's a band in here? What have you seen be successful in the past? Can you accommodate certain types of musicians? Maybe they can't accommodate all types of musicians, but when you're thinking about layout, music and entertainment is a part of that. So make sure that you're kind of paying attention to the acoustics of the space and asking those questions accordingly. The next topic that we'll touch on is cost, which of course the price tag is always a hugely important part of whatever you're choosing for your wedding day, whether that's with a venue, with your garments that you're wearing, with flowers, booze, all of it. The price tag is huge. So we will talk about costs next. View, specifically speaking to View Columbus, we have a very simple cost structure, makes it nice and easy for our clients to understand what they're getting and for what price. You see all the pricing up front, and the nice thing about that, having that with a venue, is that with so many other vendors that you're choosing for your wedding day, the cost can be variable, meaning that you can get a quote up front, but your costs will continue to shift as you're continuing to plan your wedding. So when you're maybe signing on with a florist, you can probably have them do a quote for 20 tables worth of centerpieces, but maybe you end up needing 22 centerpieces, and that of course will shift your cost and kind of make your budget a little bit more variable. But having the total cost up front and knowing that that price does not shift is hugely vital to keep you on budget. And so when you are looking at venues, you really want to understand what comes with their cost, what is included with that, what's not included, what are things that they're not providing that you might have to accommodate and account for. And so, again, just having venues that really spell it out up front and educate you before you're signing any contracts is very, very valuable. Make sure you're asking those pointed questions. What is included with this cost? Are there any hidden costs I'm not seeing? Go ahead and ask those questions. Don't be scared. Talking about financials is totally normal, and we as venues want you to feel comfortable signing on with us. We would rather have the questions asked up front and rather have that conversation and you feel comfortable versus you signing on, not understanding what's entailed in that cost, and then maybe having issues later, thinking something wasn't included when it was, or vice versa. As you're looking at different venues, everyone does kind of dice things up differently. There are all different, many ways that we can do cost structures. So it does make it somewhat difficult at times to compare one venue to another because everyone does it a little bit differently. But again, just taking your time, asking those questions, understanding what's included so that you can kind of start to compare across venues as you're researching. Some venues are considered all-inclusive, meaning that they are maybe handling not just providing the venue and the space, but perhaps providing other items like your catering. Perhaps that's in-house. That would be kind of included with an all-inclusive venue. There are all-inclusive venues that provide the bar, sometimes the decor and the music or the DJ or the entertainment for the evening. There are venues that provide the florals as part of their package, and sometimes even the dessert or the cake as part of their packaging as well. So those are just different factors to consider that can take your cost with a venue up potentially, but another thing that could do is save you on the other end where you're not having to necessarily decide who does my flowers. That's already in-house. You don't have to make that decision, but for a lot of couples, you maybe want to make that decision on your own. Choose a vendor that you really love versus I picked a venue and the flowers already come with it. You maybe don't have as much freedom on who you work with. There are honestly pros and cons to both approaches. Neither approach is wrong. It's just that every venue does a little bit differently. So again, you want to really make sure you understand what comes with that cost of your venue. On the alternative hand, there are venues that are more just the space itself versus providing XYZ your entire day. So they're not all inclusive. They're more, hey, we're the venue, we can maybe recommend other vendors for you to work with, but we are the space itself, we provide the space and the furniture, and you have the freedom as a client to go ahead and bring in your band, your cake and your dessert, your photo booth. So again, asking those questions, don't be afraid to ask what's included with the cost, and of course venues should be basically telling you that up front, but if anything is unclear, make sure that you're getting clarity on that. So the next topic that we will talk about is policies and usage of the venue space. This does kind of go hand in hand with layout and capacity, which we talked about previously, but diving a little bit further into the policies and how you're able to use your venue space. Again, something that every venue structures a little bit differently. Some weddings you can be on site for 14 hours straight, and some venues are a little bit more specific about your timing and when you can arrive and leave, and all of those items. So we will dive right in. The nice thing about View is that we really do give couples the option to bring in their own unique items. We of course have ways that we can guide you on what you're bringing in, but as far as usage, there is some freedom there. There is freedom to have your unique decor on site. We're happy to guide you and tell you what we've seen be successful in the past, of course. But as far as usage goes, we're not, restricting too much on the side of you can't bring in your own card box, or you can't bring in, your own picture frames of family pictures. There are some venues that are very, very specific with only their decor being used, and so again, neither approach is right or wrong. They're just different approaches, different things to consider. The other really great thing with View and with many other venues as well is you want to consider your usage as far as, are you sharing your space with another event or wedding during your rental time? And again, this is just something that different venues can accommodate differently. Some venues are large enough to where there can be multiple events on site and you're never even seeing the other event taking place. There are other venues where perhaps you might be sharing a lobby with another wedding, and then you're kind of proceeding into your specific area for that. Day of access, you really want to consider this highly as you're choosing a venue. Oftentimes you will maybe prefer to spend the bulk of your day before you're at your venue getting ready to at a hotel, at someone's home, or the venue itself. Everyone has different preferences on that, but that will vary across venues. What time they allow you that access, whether that's, again, a very, very long time before your guest arrival, or if it's only a couple hours before guest arrival, which is also very common. Everyone will have their preference on that, whether you prefer to be in one place or you're getting ready off-site and coming in closer to the wedding start time. So again, just things to consider, and definitely want to make sure that your needs are met as you're searching for a venue to add to your wedding day. Vendor time on site is also another policy to consider. Consider how much time your vendors will have to bring your vision to life, and is that enough time for them? Considering whether you can bring your wedding items in the day before or perhaps a couple days before, and how much time you would have to set that up, or your vendors would have to set that up. Again, something that every venue slices and dices a little bit differently, and I will say one thing on this, that venues will give ample enough time to what they have seen success with in the past, meaning that if they give 2 hours or 3 hours of access time before your guest arrival, that could sound short to you as you're beginning this wedding venue process. That could sound like not enough time. Go ahead and ask the question and ask your venue tour, whoever you're touring with, is that enough time? You want to make sure that you're comfortable with that. But for the most part, your venue would not put that policy in place unless they knew that your event could, take off running and be very successful with that time frame. They are never going to want to shortchange you and only give you half an hour of time unless they saw that that was doable for other past weddings. So as you're new to this wedding process, do place some trust, have some open-mindedness to what the venues are advising is best, because they wouldn't want to put those policies in place unless they could still have successful, happy, memorable weddings and happy clients with those policies. Another thing to consider with policies and usage is, again, do you have the ability to bring in XYZ of what you would like to include in your day? Some venues are extremely flexible with this, to where you can bring in your own alcohol. That's actually a policy here at View, and one of our couple's favorite selling points is that they can bring in their own alcohol. That is hugely important for our clients. Some venues will, have no problem with you bringing in your own desserts or late night snacks, or again, your own decor, whereas some venues might be a little bit more restrictive on that. Linens is also something to consider. Oftentimes your linens are coming through your catering team, but If you have a very select linen that you would like to rent from elsewhere, go ahead and ask your venue, is this possible? Will you allow this? And see what their usage policy is on that. Along with your usage, you do want to be asking the question, how much freedom do you have in the space to make your wedding what you envision? So asking your venues that you're researching, do I have flexibility in this space? Can I really make a customized layout? Can I have my ping pong table brought in? I know it sounds outlandish, but there are many, many unique weddings and events that we've seen in the past, people asking super unique questions. So if you have a vision that you want brought to life and that is really important to you to see on your wedding day, bring that to the forefront, talk about it up front with these venues that you're looking at and see if that's even a possibility. Some venues can accommodate those items and some might not be able to, but knowing that information up front will give you the ability to make the best decision for your day. Okay, so the last topic that we'll be touching on in today's talk is aesthetics and memory building as the kind of final big factor to consider when you're choosing a wedding venue. So aesthetics meaning, what does the venue look like? Do you like how it looks? Maybe you like this geometric and greenery background, or maybe that's not your style. Everyone wants a different look for their wedding day. Some people want rustic, some people want elegant and elevated, some people want super rural, some people want urban with a skyline in the background. Nothing is wrong. It's all just different visions and different wants and needs for your wedding day. So aesthetics, how does your venue look? The space around your venue, what is immediately surrounding your venue, considering how that looks. And memory building, meaning, does your venue give you the ability to build memories, have a unique experience, and take that with you for the rest of your life? So View specifically does meet that need of aesthetics, having super unique features throughout our space that are really often not found in other types of event spaces. We have lots of different features throughout our space that kind of set us apart in various ways, lots of natural light, greenery and plant life throughout the space, and kind of those organic elements mixed with an industrial touch as well. Another great thing about View is that we are a large indoor space, so you have that comfort level of appropriate heating and cooling throughout the seasons, but really large windows up front, a view of the skyline visible from our front doors and our front patios, and we do have, again, just that hugely important prime location to hotels, highway access, etc. You do want to consider when you're choosing a wedding venue how you will look back on that venue as an important element of your day. So kind of along with the location of the venue itself, is there a personal connection to the venue itself? Is there a personal connection to the city that the venue is in or the location the venue is in? That's all part of that memory building. So maybe you met in Columbus. Maybe your first date was at a brewery and you like that View is in the brewery district. I've had couples tour with me before that used to live in an apartment very close, and they used to walk by View, every week, and then they're coming into View for a wedding tour down the road. So again, building those memories, how will you take that with you, and how does a venue fit into that? And then as far as aesthetic goes, simply, do you like how the wedding venue looks? Do you like how it will look in your future photos? You will want to look back on your photos for years and years and decades to come, and loving the space and loving how your venue looks will make that all the easier to continue enjoying those wedding photos or wedding videos down the road. It's almost, equivalent to choosing what you're wearing on the day. The background of the pictures is going to be extremely important too. So of course you do want to love the way that you look on your wedding day. You want to love the way that your centerpieces look. You want to love the way your venue looks. Just something to keep in mind. I know it sounds like, of course you would notice this, but keep it in mind. And lastly, along with the memory building aspect, is thinking about how the venue will enrich your wedding day as a whole and really enrich the experience of your wedding guests. So if you consider that your wedding guests are spending hours here on site at any specific venue, you want to consider how they might be able to build memories at that venue. For instance, View has a beautiful patio out front. You can, get some fresh air throughout your wedding day. You can take photos with the skyline in the background, get some fresh air. We have some unique lighting and kind of industrial features out there to enjoy while you're mingling and catching up with loved ones, and that is a memory building experience for your guests. So considering how in all these venues that you're looking at, how are your guests going to experience it? How are they going to make memories to last a lifetime? And of course, how you as the married couple are going to celebrate and take those memories with you too. We would absolutely love to chat more about what View can offer to your wedding day. If you'd like to reach out, go ahead and visit our website at viewcolumbus.com. There is an inquiry form there where you can go ahead and inquire directly to us if you want more information on pricing and what our packages look like. We're always happy to have you in for an on-site tour, and we do have a video tour available on our website as well. So if you need to go ahead and tour virtually, that is a great option right now. We are doing on-site tours, so something to consider, and we would love to show you our space. And if your venue search takes you elsewhere, we wish you the best of luck. It's a fun process, and just remember that at the end of the day, you are marrying your person, and planning can be overwhelming, but really rely on those vendors and those venues to guide you. They are here to be your experts and here to support you and bring your amazing day to life. So congratulations to everyone.